My name's Leo X. Robertson. I'm a writer, filmmaker, very bad stand-up comedian from Scotland. I'm living in Norway, and I'm here mostly to talk about my latest book, which is called Bar Hopping for Astronauts, subtitle Cosmic Horror, Late-Stage Capitalism and Other Light Reading. Just years of living and changing my perceptions of people and being more fair and balanced and more aware of the struggle everyone's going through in terms of like how little information any of us have in any given situation. I wonder if men can be more egotistical, which is a male expression of insecurity, this idea of showboating.
Welcome to the One Moment Podcast. I'm your boy and your co-host, KO or Kevo or Kevin, doesn't matter. Whatever you want to call me, everybody calls me something, right? And we have an amazing star guest today. And I am loving this guy. He is absolutely hilarious. I can't wait to get into his experiences and one of the reasons why he's on the show today. Now, let me preface this, okay? We do anything mental health related. If it falls under the umbrella of mental health, we're going to talk about it. So, as always, let me just throw this disclaimer out there. If you're triggered at all by anything you hear or see or whatever, right? Doesn't matter. If you're triggered at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and you need immediate help, please seek immediate help from a local hospital, local crisis unit, or crisis center. You can also reach out to a trusted loved one or anybody in your corner. If you are in the United States or any of our territories, 988 is a local suicide and crisis hotline. And you also have 911, which is the local emergency number. Now, today's guest comes from across the way. I think this is our first guest from on the other side of the ocean. Now, we've had many people from, Canada, which is, that's like our second cousin, right? This young man comes from across the way. And I don't want to take too much of this time on his intro because, the guy's amazing. So I'm going to let him kick us off. Mr. Leo,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. My name's Leo X. Robertson. I'm a writer living in filmmaker, very bad stand-up comedian from Scotland. And I'm living in Norway, and I'm here mostly to talk about my latest book, which is called Bar Hopping for Astronauts, subtitle Cosmic Horror, Late-Stage Capitalism and Other Light Reading. It comes out it's out now with Pulp Literature, press from Canada. I'm very pleased with them. Worked on the book for over 10 years. Lots of sci-fi stories that should be entertaining, thought-provoking, and certainly mental health is a big part of the themes of the book and why I write and why I make films and everything. So I'm very happy to be on this podcast and talk to you about all kinds of things.
Now, I appreciate it. Now, I do have to ask you, Kate, because we're talking about bar hopping for astronauts.
Yeah.
I am curious to know, okay, bar hopping for astronauts, like, you're talking about two types of industries that do not go together. So how did you put that together? Like, where does the name come from?
Well, the title came afterwards. What I like to do at the beginning of the year sometimes to prove that I've gotten better as a writer is I find old drafts of things I didn't finish, and then I try and rewrite them and see if I've gotten any better. I had one about an elderly astronaut who was in a bar trying to tell everyone about how great his older exploits were, his adventures and everything, and nobody really wanted to listen. So I rewrote it, and then the name emerged out of that it was about an elderly astronaut who, he goes to a bar maybe decades after he helped to colonize the moon. He was one of the first people there. He tries to tell people don't care because they've been on the moon themselves, and it's much better than it was when the guy was there. Nobody can remember that he went there. His suit looks really out of date, and he ends up getting assaulted, and the suit gets torn. And the suit is of such good quality that he was able to live in it for decades, and so he has to relearn how to live outside of the suit. and how to be recognized as somebody in like a late phase of his life without relying on old achievements of his. And so it became a story about the technology itself. How could somebody live in a spacesuit? And what would the world look like to somebody who'd been like in stasis for a long time, dealing with like technology culture shock? And just a very relatable thing and a positive message, really, which I do believe, which is that you can reinvent yourself at different phases of your life, however painful that might be. I think it's always worth doing, and that there's always something new for you on the horizon if you're brave enough to keep doing it.
No, I definitely would, agree with you on that one. I don't think that, we get to this point in life ever, period. Okay, ever, where we're just blossoming and that's it. And then we're just kind of like a glum lot, right? Like, and doom and gloom and all of that. I disagree with that. I think, every time we make a decision, we're not always stuck with that decision. We can always make another decision after another decision. So,
Mm-hmm.
tell me more about the book, right? Like, I want to
Yeah.
know more about the book because so far, like, I'm thinking of it as what you've just described a little bit
Mm-hmm.
as narrative therapy. And what I mean by some of your narrative therapy approaches is the fact that is exactly what we were just saying, right? Like, I have an experience in life and it's and my experience is my story. My story is my story. Yours is your story. And I can't take that away from you and you can't take that away from me. And it goes back to what I just said, right? Or what we were just saying. Just because you make a decision doesn't mean you're stuck with that decision and the outcome of. You can always change it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that so the book contains like 15 different short stories. Some of them are like up to novella length, so I think some are maybe 100 pages, but between 4 and 100 pages each of the stories are. And they all envision, I think, different types of future, different places on the planet, and what might be going on in them in different ways. And I think that it kind of definitely soothed my anxiety to remember that nobody knows what the future looks like, and that it might look even better than things look now, or that even if it does look worse than it looks now in certain ways, you can still find people who are finding ways to find meaning in those lives and enjoyment, even within systems that are disempowering and so on, even while working towards um, trying to make a better future. You can find enjoyment in bad situations, which has definitely been my um, experience of life. So even while stories are dystopian, I think that always I try to write with a fundamental kind of kindness and compassion, and with the kind of belief in ordinary people and their ability to overcome um, overwhelming circumstances. I think we all demonstrate ourselves to be incredibly resilient in all kinds of circumstances, and I like to try and represent that. But I do appreciate that you gave a trigger warning and talked about resources and so on, because I think that I find there to be a kind of deep honesty in narratives that have lots of kind of incredibly dark elements or elements that might trigger people and so on. I think there can be kind of I really trust the truths that emerge from stories that have gone as dark as they can go. I think that's my kind of personal taste. But it's not to say that I want the effect on the reader to be uh depressing, you know?
No, 100%. And I think and I think it's important that we all understand where, at least we try to get to a point where we can understand each other's stories and each other's experiences. And yet I don't, you know, I get to experience your story with you through empathy, right? And because it helps me to understand you better as a person and helps me to understand you better, in your overall experience. So if people are wanting to buy your book, where can they find it at? That's going to
Yes,
be
you
my
can.
first question.
Great first question. I think the best place to find it is on Pulp Literature's website, which I think is just pulpliterature.com. You can find it from the homepage there. I think I might also be on Amazon as well. Um, but those would be the two places. Uh, because it's like a press in Canada, I'm still awaiting my copies. I can't wait to see them, but I don't even have any of my own yet. But I've seen the way they've designed it. It looks like a beautiful object, so I think it's well worth everyone's time.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, okay? I'm curious, right? Because you talk about a guy, right? Like I know from me, growing up, it's this common theme of, oh, guys don't feel, don't talk, don't say, don't trust, don't all of this. You write a book that's solely based on, I mean, giving positivity, right? Bringing positivity to darkness.
Mm,
Um, and you're a guy, right?
hmm
Like, I'm I'm curious as to how did you navigate that? How did you navigate those I'm gonna say narratives of what it is growing up. Does that make sense?
Good question. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I feel I just talked to a friend today, like I said, and both of us are expats living in Norway. So I came here because I work as a process engineer, and there's lots of engineering in the city. So that's why I ended up here, because that's my day job. But the culture is very, very strong here. It's very difficult to be a part of, and you feel constantly on the outside of it, even though I've been here over 10 years. Um, but there's something, and I've seen my brother and sister do this as well, because my sister lives in Copenhagen in Denmark. My brother lives in Tokyo in Japan, I believe. So it seems that all three of us kind of specifically chose cultures that we would always be on the outside of. And there's something you can just kind of give up when that happens. You go, okay, I'm never going to be in the inside of this. Great. Okay. And then I'm just an outsider all the time. And so I think when you talk about this, what men have permission to do, I think when it comes to the way I live, you just kind of go, well, I'm already not allowed in. So I'm just going to do what I feel like then. It's just amazing once you've just resigned yourself to the idea that you're not part of it. Um, and then, like I said, I've made my own community of expats and people who are interested in filmmaking and comedy and writing and so on, through my own little clubs that I've made a kind of uh, my own community of like-minded people that doesn't necessarily have to follow mainstream rules. Um, and I find much more comfort doing that than trying to fit in at all. But that doesn't sound like your mission. Your mission is more kind of to um, spread, I don't know, uh, vulnerability to men, or in a more mainstream fashion.
Well, I mean, for us, man, I think it just goes back to because when you think about culture, right, and you look at culture, culture is a huge part of what it is that makes us who we are, right? Because like yourself, man, like you know, uh, I rarely feel a part of everywhere I go, right? Anywhere I go, and it's nothing against the people that I'm around, but like yourself, I have my own group of people that I helped to, or that I guess I can say I'm a part of, right? Not the fact that we're expats or anything of that sort, but it's the fact that if you ask every one of them, "Hey, do you feel a part of?" The question is going to be no, I don't feel a part of. But when we're together, we have this sense of unity. We have this sense of, "Hey, I'm a part of you, and you're a part of me," type ideal. And so I think because we have that amongst ourselves, it helps us to be a a part of this larger society that's greater than us. Does
Mm.
that make sense on anything that I'm saying?
I think so. It sounds like a very spiritual message.
I mean, you can say that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And
Hmm
so you're in a culture that is completely different than you. You and some guys built this kind of culture within that where you do filmmaking and all of that. Like,
Yeah.
so tell me about the filmmaking. Like, what all do you do? What type of films do you do? I know you said that you were just had something feature in Virginia. So
Yeah.
for our listeners who maybe need some filmmaking done, go ahead because I know I need filmmaking or video editing. Not, I guess you can say filmmaking too. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
tell us about that and how did you kind of go into that area?
Yeah, well, I consider it filmmaking for sure. What you're talking about, we're completely anti-pretentious in our group. I uh, I live in Stavanger in Norway. It's a city to the south. I moved here from Oslo, where I was working on a project previously. I moved back here in 2019. Like I say, because we're all expats. Lots of my friends traveled out of the city. I didn't know anyone again, and I needed to make new friends again. And I turned 30, I think. And I mean, and now I'm about to turn 37, and I still think, like, fine, whatever, I'll make new friends. Like, it doesn't matter now. But when I turned 30, I was like, oh, it's too late. Now I can't make any new friends. I'm 30 years old, which just seems ridiculous now. Um, but so and I think a great way to make friends as an adult is to go to clubs and stuff. So I went to like a photography club. I went to internations, which was just like for networking expats and things like that. But there was no filmmaking club in Stavanger, and fair enough, because I think a filmmaking club, you just assume that there would be some sort of cost or skill barriers to entry that would be too high for anyone to just wander in and take part in. But then I saw some great films like Tangerine by Sean Baker that was shot on an iPhone, or Steven Soderbergh has one called Unsane, which is brilliant. And I figured if you can shoot something on an iPhone, well, I have one of those. I know people have those. Let's do that. So I made a terrible short film that was just like a phone pointed at me at my desk, where it was called "Can I Quit My Day Job Yet?" And then I opened my email and I just look at various writing rejection emails, and I had writer friends of mine read rejection emails that I had received to me, and then I get up and I leave the screen. So, can I quit my day job yet? No, I can't, because I just received a bunch of rejections for my writing. Um, so then I took this short film. I set up an event on meetup.com and on Facebook at a bar, and I took my laptop and I'd made this short film, and I said, "This is a short film I made of me on my phone. Um, can do you want to help me make something better than this?" And there were about 8 or 9 people showed up, and one of them was an actor who I just saw again today, very good friend of mine. Um, he said, "Yeah, I've got a monologue you could film," and I was like, "But I don't know how to point a camera at somebody else." I was so low in my skills, you know. Um, but that turned out to be the perfect approach, because everyone who showed up also didn't really know how to make a film, and we were going to learn how to do it together. And that was an amazing um, bonding exercise, because it's such a vulnerable and very embarrassing thing to do, especially with a bunch of strangers, that you get a very instant rapport doing that with people. Um, and it was nice to, writing, I've been writing for years, and that's just sitting alone at your desk. And then, sure, somebody might connect with your writing, but they do it individually and you're not there when it happens. It was nice to create a more kind of communal experience of art, both in the creation and the consumption of it, and to be there for those parts. And um, it's a huge challenge to me as an introvert to think of running my own group, and uh, a group for a discipline I knew nothing about. Uh, but it was an amazing learning curve thing to do, and it has resulted in some of the closest friends I've ever had. So when it comes to your podcast and just the idea of mental health and community, it just became, I like to say, the real filmmaking club was the friends we made along the way, because that became so much more important than any of the films we were making. It was just like, wow, we had such a great time this evening. And if we're lucky, we filmed something we can show other people.
No, 100%. Absolutely 100%. I mean, speaking of yours, I mean, I was so deathly afraid of getting on the internet and doing a recording and putting it out there.
Yeah.
I'm not a filmmaking person. I'm not a photography person. And I literally could feel myself almost panicking on the inside when we started this process. And now it's just like, all right, cool. But it goes back to what you were saying, exactly what you were saying, where um, it's through experience. Literally, it's
Yeah.
through experience that I am experiencing. I get to build my skills, right? Um, and I'm not perfect, but it's one of those things like, uh, um, it comes with time.
Yep.
We don't build it uh in one night or in one day. No, it
Mm.
comes with time. And I become more comfortable with it. I never said I became my expert. There's two different things, right? So I'm curious. Okay, you're introvert. You do
Mm.
filmmaking with others. You're a writer. What got you
Yep.
into all this? Like, where did you, or when did you know that you were going to be like all of the stuff?
So if I can be very honest about it, I mean, I started writing because my mother passed away, and she was an English teacher and loved language, and it was a way of me to kind of deal with that emotionally and carry the torch in a way for her. Um, and so because I mean, she loved Shakespeare and all those kinds of things, and she was also like a play, like a theater director. And I'm going to direct a play that I wrote next year, which is very cool. So I'm finally coming around to doing something in her footsteps. And when I moved back to Stavanger, my dad also had just passed away, and I thought, well, when I started writing, that really helped me with the loss of my mother. I guess I got to pick up a whole new artistic discipline to cope with the loss of my dad, and he was an advertising executive. He championed other people's creativity. He was very good at getting groups of people together and just making them feel great about themselves. And he was like a party starter of a guy, which I don't relate to at all. I think he was amazing at that. And I think that what I do in his honor pales in comparison to the type of man he was. But it's my attempt to preserve some of that energy of his in the world, is to get people together and energize and make them trust in their own creativity, and to uh, just make them feel empowered to do things that they wouldn't otherwise. So it's really both a coping mechanism, a mechanism of self-expression out of like a really urgent need to express, and just a way of trying to empower people and sharing that coping strategy with them also.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the passing. Um, uh, and it sounds like you took, some of their strengths and qualities and implemented it, not just in your own personal life, but also to help better the people of the lives that you are surrounded by. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the attempt. That's the attempt for sure.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, and I think that's really what life is about is, helping us or helping one another to better, I was just saying this to somebody else. I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. And I said, my ultimate goal in life is to leave this world in a better place than what I found it in. So yeah, no, 100%. So going from the way you grew up, right? And the passing of your parents, again, apologies about that. Is this your first book, or where does this book fall at as far as like in your writing experiences so far?
I don't even know what number it is, but it could be like over the 10th, probably easily. But I never had any kind of formal training with it. For I'm just too stubborn to be trained in anything by another human being. Um, which I think is quite common in artists. Uh, just the idea that somebody I met now could tell me how to articulate things in my own voice better than I could. It just, I know they have kind of technical skills and things, structural, but nah, I don't want to hear it. So I just had to teach myself, which meant that my first books were just not great, but I didn't know that. So I self-published for a while, thinking I could get direct feedback from people, and people were very kind about it. But I've done way better since. Um, but I've also kind of got comfortable. I mean, you probably feel like this in your career, where you're just like, I thought by this age and this book number, I would feel like way more um, confident in my abilities, or assured of them, or satisfied as well. I just don't feel very satisfied. I'm just like, I know I no wait, I'm not done saying anything, and I know I can say it better. Here comes another one, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I don't know if that's the way we're raised or if that's culture or not, because I feel the same way, you know. I was just, I mean, to this day, like last weekend, I was, at work, and I'm aggravating the mess out of my out of my colleagues and my supervisor. And I'm like, oh, man, like, am I doing things that like I need to improve at? Like, what kind of mistakes have I made? Like help me understand, And it's that lack of confidence. It's literally a lack of confidence in self.
Mm,
And I don't know where that comes from. I honestly don't. Because I get great feedback, right? Like I get feedback, and a lot of it's great and positive feedback. But,
mm,
like, that's a question that I need to maybe dig a little bit deeper into. Where do I lack self-confidence at?
mm. Yeah, because you have to
That's
let that feedback in, right? Or it doesn't have so much value. Yeah.
yeah. No,
But that's
100.
so difficult. That's so difficult. Because I mean, I receive, like I say, I receive actually very mixed feedback from uh, a very difficult to penetrate uh, culture here. There's just a kind of, because like the feedback that you receive has a kind of cultural tone to it that just doesn't jar with me. There's a kind of constant dissatisfaction, um, which can get a little tiresome. It's like, well, if you're going to be constantly dissatisfied, if there's no point where you say well done, you get tired of performing for people like that. Um, but then if I'm going to live here, if I'm going to keep, performing for people like that, I need to adjust to the type of feedback that it's God. This process of constantly receiving feedback and external versus internal validation. I mean, you know better than me how that
Right.
works or doesn't. Yeah.
Right. No, 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 dude, you are absolutely right on. I mean, I am right there too. I am right there. I've been there too many times to count. And I am constantly reminded of the need to continuously adapt and grow and improve. And that's
Mm,
really what it is, right? I think that
yeah.
we as human beings are called to adapt, grow, and improve, right?
Oh yeah.
And and that those three words right there constitute, I think, on a global scale, what life, what the essence of life is. That I'm never going to know everything. I'm going to have barriers and problems and troubles, and that's okay. But I still have to grow, adapt, and I don't know. I mean, am I making sense on that?
No, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think that what I found very uncomfortable creating with others, particularly in like a club that had, I suppose, a hobby basis tone, was the notion that people were going to participate if it was fun for them. Um, and it's not fun for me. Like, it's not fun to try and write. It's very, very difficult. I write because it's challenging and because I think I'll be a better writer at the end of it. I write because it's a growth opportunity. I'm going to direct a play next year because I've never done that before. I've never directed a play before. Barely written that many plays. I'm going to do that because it sounds like a really difficult challenge. The idea of me going out the house and directing people and just listening to my own words so many evenings is so cringe inducing, but I'm going to I'm going to grow as a person as a result of it. But that's going to be painful. It's not going to be it's not going to be fun for me, but that's okay. That's not why I do it. But then the notion of but I have to kind of keep those motivations hidden from people as well because some people are able to have fun while growing, I suppose. But I've not mastered that. What do you think?
No, you're 100% right. I think pain for me now, pain is a touchstone of growth, and I don't yet know how to have fun while it's being painful, but I do know after the fact I'm able to reflect. I'm like, oh, right. But through that journey, it's not fun. It's far from fun. Um, I have to agree with you on that one. And, man, like, wow, yeah, so as you were talking, I'm thinking, I'm just reminded about my own experiences in life and especially what I try to help, patients realize, right, is, hey, it's the journey. Focus on the journey. Don't focus on the outcome. Like,
Oh yeah.
focus on the journey.
Mm.
The journey is where the learning goes. It's not the outcome. The journey is what makes us. The outcome is just a fruit of that journey.
Yeah.
So 10 plus books, how painful has it been to get through every book? And is it less painful now versus the first one?
It's far less painful now. It's far less painful now because when I was younger, I wanted to be rich and famous instantly, um, which is like very typical. And it's funny that I wanted that so much more then when I had so fewer skills, and now I'm way more uh I don't know, confident in my abilities, or I have more abilities, and now I couldn't care less about that. And I think it's like you say, because it's about the journey. And I think that I've learned that if what writers do is they write every day, or what creative people do is they create something every day. And if they're going to do it every day, um, y- yes, it is kind of painful, but it has to be made as minimally painful as possible. So there's lots of things I don't do now that I used to, which is this kind of sense of noble suffering of, oh, I'm just going to sit here and work on this because it hurts a lot, but it's supposed to hurt because, damn it, I'm a writer and I take this very seriously. Um, but now I'm just like, listen, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to give myself the opportunity to write things and let the words out. Um, I'm going to see if that works. And if it doesn't, we're going to step away. And then my brain will go, okay, this is what we do for the next scene, and I'll type it into my phone or something. So actually, I think the less painful I make it with my own actions, the more easy it is to create, and then the more satisfying my life is. And beyond that, if it is of interest to other people, if they want to read it or give me money for it, that's just a great bonus. But integrating it as a minimally painful daily practice of mine has made my life all the better, and that's where my focus is, for the most part.
Yeah. I think it's, being present.
Oh yeah.
Being present in the
Mm.
moment is, what I'm taking from what you were just saying,
Yep.
uh, because it helps me to be mindful of, you know, what could be, what has been, and the potentiality of whatever might be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this, right? Because you said earlier it took you 10 years to finish this book that you're talking about, the bar hopping for astronauts.
Yeah.
Took you 10 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Out of everything we spoke about so far, as far as like the challenges of writing, the challenges to one's mental health and growth as whether you're author or not or even not an author, what do you feel like to well, what was the reason for those 10 years
Yeah.
to
Well,
to fin
this one is sci-fi short stories, and there's really I have not found a tougher genre to write in than science fiction. I didn't have much experience of it when I started. I just really liked reading it, and I think that's a great sign. I think that if you really like reading sci-fi short stories and you're a writer, then great, you should be good at writing them. Lots of other people, most other people I would say I talk to, think about the market and what's popular and what could make money if they gave it a go, rather than what they genuinely enjoy reading or consuming themselves, um, what they're fans of, or what occurs to them naturally to express. So I was a huge fan of lots of sci-fi short story writers, and then I wasn't good at the beginning at judging the difference in quality between my output and theirs. I was like, okay, they wrote this, I wrote this, and they seem kind of similar. Um, but I would get my stories rejected by the same outlets that published people that I admired. And then I would compare them again and go, oh, okay, no, actually, they've done like 10 times a better story from a technical standpoint than I have. Um, but I didn't know how to improve my writing either. I was like, this is literally the best I can do. And I know it's not as good as that, but I don't know how to make it like that. Um, and then the case is just to write something else. You just write something else and then just keep writing other things and leave these drafts in your drawer or hard drive or wherever. And like I say, years would pass and I would pick up older drafts and go, okay, let me see if I can rewrite this and make it say what I was trying to make it say, but which I didn't have the skills to make it say at the time. Um, and then I would find after years of practice that I had the skills, and not just years of practice, but just years of living and changing my perceptions of people and being more fair and balanced and more aware of the struggle everyone's going through in terms of like how little information any of us have in any given situation we're making decisions and just being kinder, I think, makes you a better writer, but just more humane, I think. Adding that to the stories. And so I was writing all different kinds of things over those 10 years, but the science fiction short stories I definitely found the toughest thing to write. And so I wouldn't do it very often either. I just go, God, that's the toughest one to do. I don't want to do it that often. But it doesn't matter because, if it takes 10 years, 1 year, write every day, write once a month, whatever, eventually 1 book, 10 book, whatever books will come out. And like you say, it's not about the number of them. It's not about the speed of it, whatever. Like, take everything at your own pace and write what you want, and then a good book will eventually emerge. Um, by which point you'll be thinking of the next one anyway. So,
Right. No, no, 100%. I mean, I think it goes back to what you were saying, how you wrapped it up was, take your time because eventually something will come through that you want and that you're looking for. There's no sense in rushing anything, especially a piece of literature, a writing, right? And, a piece of writing because it's art in and of itself.
mm,
Art is supposed to be something that is, you know, if we do it right, and I say if we do it right, don't mean everything's gonna be perfect, but it's beautiful, right? It's your signature. It's our signature that goes on this piece of art. So I think you're right. So let me ask you this. Coming from a male perspective, okay,
yep.
what do you feel like in your experience would be something that male authors struggle with? Is it yeah, and the reason I ask is because if you look at research, women tend to be more in tune with their emotional selves, men tend to be more in tune with their analytical self, right?
Hmm.
So so I'm asking because of that piece right there, there's gender differences as it relates to the way we think.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like is some of the barriers to being an author through your own experience?
Hmm. I wonder if men can be more egotistical, which is an insecurity. It's just a particularly male expression of insecurity. This idea of showboating or so on. Um, I think hiding behind cleverness. You know, because I think to tell a good story, um, to relate to another person in a story or in real life, you have to make yourself vulnerable. You have to be authentic. You have to say what you're really thinking, feeling, fearing. And there's a temptation just to say yes, but like I know a lot of big words, or I've thrown all these fancy concepts at you, or I've read a lot of things and here are a lot of references, but none of that has anything to do with what's really going on inside your head. And good communication can be very simple, and simple can be scary because uh you can't be sure. It's like, did I really do a good technical writing job if it's just this sentence of short words? You're like, yes, absolutely. If you can, the more accessible your story or your writing is, I think, the the broader the audience can understand your message, the better the piece of writing is. um it may not be to everyone's taste once they understand it, but making yourself broadly understood is very difficult to do. It's always very difficult to do because every time I start a new piece of writing, I don't know what it means. If I knew what it meant, I wouldn't be writing it. I'm trying to discover what it means by writing it, and then present that to other people. So, but then often I will try and write in little, very obvious conclusions at the end of scenes, just to try and remind myself that there is a point to what I just wrote. And then you have to trim all of that stuff out because also you have to leave room for people's interpretation, and you don't want to override that with your own, because that's not good communication. So, from a male perspective, I would say, yeah, that men can tend to be can hide behind cleverness, um, or try to make something very cool. Uh, and I just, and then I mean, there's understanding women as well, like you say. There's differences between men and women and other genders that are difficult to represent accurately. But you also don't want to make too big a deal of the differences either. We have lots of very common concerns in common that transcend our gender as well. Um, so, God, I don't know if that made any sense. I hope it did, but those are my reflections on
No,
the
no, it does
masculinity. Yeah.
because no, no, 100%, 100%. One of the things that I was thinking about when you said that we have um, a lot of differences, but also similarities. I was thinking, men and women, we're all unique individuals, right? And so, like your struggles in becoming an author are going to be different than somebody else's. But at the same time, when you bring those two people together, you have this unique whole. And so you have this beautiful sense of creativity, or this beautiful piece of creativity or creative works. So let me ask you then, have do you find it when you start a new piece of artwork, right? And I'm gonna say artwork because it could be filming, it could be writing, it could be anything related to your skills, right? And I want to get into I want to throw comedian in there too. Do you find that when you're starting something off, a new piece of artwork, do you find that it is hard to have creativity, or do you find that it just comes in time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I always say, like, the more you write, the more you write. Like the more you write in a day, the more ideas spark off one another. It's almost like there are creative gods watching people, and they see me hopefully, and they go, "Wow, this guy is putting a lot of hours into this. Let's give him more ideas." And then they give you more ideas than you can ever do anything with. So I'll be working on one idea and writing other ideas on the margins for future stories and so on. So I have um lots of different I have too many ideas now, having done it long enough. It used to take me a long time to come up with ideas, but the more you do it, you can't. I mean, you can't exhaust your imagination ever. So the more time you spend at it, the easier it will get to get new original ideas, as well as the more you read as well. Just eventually, you reach a kind of tipping point where you end up with more than you could ever write in your entire life, and it's fun for me to try and imagine them as different modes of expression. Like recently, I did a performance on stage as a piece of stand-up comedy that I decided could also be a short film. So then I wrote it into scripts, and then I showed the film of the performance I made to the funding people to say, "Look, here's me performing these words," and the audience liked it. Um, Maybe it could be a good short film. This is how I need to make it, and I think that there are kind of unknowable. I think that the differences between these different disciplines are unknowable, and what they do well and what they don't do well is kind of properly understood. But where the overlaps are or are not are up for debate and interesting to explore. And you see different strengths brought out in different media, or you see different things not expressed as well once they're converted from one form to another. Um, And it's just an endlessly interesting thing to do. This is a lifelong learning thing. You must feel similar about your career. Like every new uh patient or client or something is a new puzzle unto themselves that is unknowable, and that keeps you going at your job, perhaps.
No, 100%. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, people ask me, okay, and I'm not going to sit there and disclose where I work. I can disclose, but I'm not, just because, out of respect to them. And
Mm,
no, NADAC is not my current employer. For anybody who's watching this, this is I am a member of NADAC, and they do not support or not support or approve not approve this video. Okay, let me just
sure.
throw that out there. But one of the things that people will tell you if you ask all of my colleagues, what are my two strengths? Individual one-on-one assessments, right? And then group therapy. And even patients will say the same thing. And it's because every time I meet a patient, as you said, it's this unique puzzle that I'm having to hear, right, and put together, right? Or at least, and I don't mean like me put the patient together, no, but I'm having to put these pieces to the puzzle together to help me understand this situation, right? Like this concern that this patient has. Same thing with group therapy. I got all of these unique different parts, and it's my goal to have to walk through and to work with each of these different parts. And now, for me, I look at, and this is what makes it easier for me. And I don't know if being on stage is something similar to this or not. I don't know, but there's two things I know for a fact. Okay, when it comes to being in the middle of a group or kind of being like doing this group thing is one, there's the stages of group development. There's four stages, which Irvin Yalom theorized was forming, storming, norming, and performing.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to get into all four of those stages. And then there's number two is, and this is, I think, going to be right up your alleyway, is laughter and humor. And so humor is really a great therapeutic skill to help us become a cohesive whole,
Mm,
right? Like, it doesn't matter the ages in the group, doesn't matter the backgrounds, the races or ethnicities, none of that matters. The humor that either I use or patients utilize in every group that I have experienced, it brings us together. And that's the one thing I think transcends literally a lot of things, right? Humor is what's the word I want to look for? I guess you can say is a healing emotion. What are your thoughts? Because you're a comedian, and I've never had a comedian on this show. We've never had a comedian on the show.
mm.
So I'd like to get your experience with humor, because I mean, like, really, that's my therapeutic experience with it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
what
Yeah, I have always loved comedy, and I think I was starting to feel that I wasn't good at receiving feedback. I think I still can't look at reviews of my books or films. Don't really like to talk about them very much. Definitely don't like to watch them when they're done. Oof, never again. But it just felt a bit too much. It felt like I was too afraid of the opinions of others. That held too much power over me. So I thought, why don't I do stand-up comedy, which is like one thing that terrifies most people. And if I can do that, probably it will dissipate, and it really, really did. It really, really did. Um, People laughed the first time I did it for 5 minutes, because I think because they told everyone this was the first 5 minutes Leo's doing this, so everyone felt very supportive. But it wasn't that funny. And then the next time I did it, nobody laughed, like at all. For the entire 5 minutes, they didn't laugh at all. And that felt horrendous. And then it happens like still happens sometimes, and it doesn't feel that bad at all because you can just get used to it so quickly. Um, and it started to teach me the difference between like, well, listen, these people don't know me as a human being, so they're not rejecting the idea of me outright. They are saying that what I just said isn't funny to them. Um, so they don't like this piece of work I just did. And so then I took this very difficult and immediate piece of feedback and was then forced to properly contextualize it in a way that didn't make me ruminate on it endlessly, right? And then I could take that into my working life and say, listen, well, these people see you for this many hours a day and they see this piece of work that you do and they judge you on that, basically, which is not the entirety of who you are. It's this one piece of what you did. Um, and so I found that amazingly healing, with or without the humor. Then, you know, I will say, I mean, I saw a comedian, very good friend of mine now, who's sort of been mentoring me in my terrible performances. I saw him do absolutely terribly. Like nothing he said after he's been doing it for like 8 years, nothing he said anybody laughed at for 5 minutes at all. You just don't know. Um, and so again, I'm somebody who I was talking to my friend about this. I have not even talked about comedy yet, but I was talking to my friend about this today about what a treat it is not to be observed. That just being in a room with somebody else, you start to act differently. You start to wonder if they're pleased with what you're saying, or you start to perform a little bit, or and I feel this in layers. I feel it so much more at work where I have to be a professional self and so on. Um, so I think it was a notion of, yeah, a performance not going down well and me still being alive at the end of it and building up some resilience to the notion of performing badly um, was also very helpful. And then when it comes to what I like to joke about, I mean, I make jokes about the fact that my parents are no longer alive, and I find that incredibly triumphant because it was certainly not a laughing matter to me for a very long time. Um, but the fact that I can make jokes about it is could that not be like the pinnacle sign of healing? That I can now turn the worst thing that ever happened to me into something that I want to offer up for other people to laugh at. Um, often it's too much for them. Like often it's too much for them and they don't want to laugh about it, which I find insulting, frankly, because it's like, listen, it didn't even happen to you. It's not even your parents. Like, and I gave you permission to laugh at it. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
How dare you? How dare you not laugh at it? Um, but yeah, I talk about being depressed. I talk about drinking too much. And I do it all as like a character based on myself. So there's a level of remove there. And I didn't notice how big taboos these things were here to the point that you bring them up and people go, oh, we don't talk about that. And then, nobody's going to laugh because they're like, somebody in my family has a problem with drinking. And I'm like, yes, that's why I'm trying to make a joke about it. And that's why I'm offering my own problems with it as the joke because we're going to laugh at me. But, all in theory sounds good, but it doesn't always work. But uh, I think that a lot of comedians I really respect are just silly, just stupid. They say silly stuff that's absurd and people laugh and that's it. But everything I do, unfortunately, has to have some deeper personal message, which can be a disadvantage in comedy. Um, but I find it cathartic would be the word. I find it incredibly cathartic. I find it a nice reminder to myself of how far I've come that I can now make jokes out of these things that I once struggled intensely with. And secondly, I hope that other people can see that these things are normal and find relief in laughter at it. Absolutely. So even if my jokes are very dark, I always have a very kind intent behind it. And I think people can feel that even when they don't find it funny, which is a lot of the time.
No, I think you're right. I mean, culture is a very weird thing, and I say weird like mean it is very complex and dynamic. That's what I mean. Okay, I love learning about cultures and everything. But I think there's, you know, there's this huge stigma on humor, right? In both mental health, substance use, everything, and people are just shy away from using humor, even professionally, right? And I'm like, no, I'm like right there with you, where I will have, I mean, there will be patients in my groups, and I'm an outgoing person, right? Like you can tell I'm an outgoing person. I am an extrovert. I'm probably the biggest extrovert you've ever known, but I'm also socially awkward. I'm freaking socially awkward. So I'll say the stupidest thing ever, right? And just completely embarrass myself. And then patients will laugh. Patients will laugh because I'll sit there and I'll do like, exactly what you said, and I will turn this mistake into a triumphant moment for patients to see, hey, it's okay, like completely okay. Laugh with me, laugh at me. I don't like that's neither here nor there.
Mm,
But what I have found is exactly what you said, right? If we're able to get to take that dark time in our life and use it for our own growth, your
mm,
way of you is going to be different than mine, and that's okay. It's supposed to be different. But that is called growth. That's called healing. That's called resilience, right? Or I shouldn't say resilience, but it really fits. But it's all of those things, and it's cathartic in its own way for each individual. And I agree with you 1,000%, right? Not every time do I do a group and it's like the best group ever, right? It did. I mean, literally, it'd be like pulling teeth. I'd be like, and y'all some quiet folks around here today, ain't you? You know, I will literally, it will really, as you said, be pulling teeth, right? Like,
mm.
you know, where your experience, well, man, I could say something, people won't laugh for 5 minutes. I'm the same way with group. Dead serious. That will be my exact. I could go into work this weekend and do a group, and it'd be absolutely the worst group ever. I don't know until I actually do it. Right. But it's at the end of the day, and this is, I think, what I'm taking away from what your experience is, just because it's the worst group ever doesn't mean that I didn't do a good job. It doesn't mean I didn't do a decent
No,
job.
no, no,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying.
absolutely not. Yeah, I think that's the kind of resilience we need in any kind of a career as well. Is doing like having the worst day and then getting up and going back in again, and it being a new day, and you just kind of go. And that's just the key to adulthood, isn't it? Just showing up again after it went terribly. You're like, right, well, that didn't work. We're going to do something. We're going to do either exactly the same thing again if I don't have new ideas today, or we'll try something a little bit differently and see if that works out. But there's so there's so much going on. I really get on great in like one-on-one conversations like this, and then when a second person comes, like there's just now there's like a trifecta. There's just the the dynamics just seem too complicated to understand. Who's supposed to talk when, who's interested in what, and who bounces off. Like it's so rarely harmonious, right? So groups in general are just, yeah, very tough to deal with. Nobody, but yeah, it's a nice reminder to me when I think, listen, okay, I'm going to perform for 5 minutes, right? I've had a month to write this, which is what I typically do. I spend a month collecting the funniest things I can think of for 5 minutes, and then half the time nobody's laughing. So I'm half wrong after thinking about it for a month for only 5 minutes worth of time. Um, it just makes me think, wow, like communication with other human beings is really difficult. It's really, really difficult, and it's constantly unknowable. So once you just have enough experience of this, you're just like, right, well, then when it goes wrong, sometimes I just see that as a feature, not a bug, right? It's just what happens. Um, you can take it less personally when conversation doesn't go well. And when you're in a group dynamic, I mean, you're not. I guess you are responsible for the group, but you're not in control of in 100% of how that group uh interacts with one another, right? They also have a lot
No,
of
I mean,
responsibility there.
for
Yeah.
the no, no, for the most part. I mean, I could run a group today and everybody be interactive and talking, and and they'll be in stages 3 and 4 of group development, right? Where they are performing, they are norming, like they are working together harmoniously. It'd be a phenomenal thing, right? Like you can go in on stage today and the whole group laughs throughout everything that you say, right? Like it'll be, I always say, man, this is one of the best groups I've ever had on, in my whole career. Then I can go in on Sunday and it'd be like, hey man, y'all were just so absolutely quiet. Y'all ain't saying nothing on today's topic. Like, what's going on with like it'll literally be pulling teeth. I mean, so I have I can't control, their personality and the energy there for the most part. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like because people are different. Everybody's gonna be different.
Yeah.
Everybody, 100%. So what do you feel, right? Because I know that is my biggest struggle right there when I do a group and it's all pulling teeth, right?
Yeah.
As far as you and your being a comedian, right? And I know I did ask you kind of similar to being, to writing. What do you feel like is your biggest challenge to being a comedian?
Do you know what it is? I think more than anything else I've done, comedy seems to be, maybe this just seems obvious to other people, but comedy seems to be mostly focused on pleasing an audience, like as a discipline. Writing is almost just about pleasing yourself. Filmmaking can largely be about pleasing yourself, but using other people to express your message. Um, but when it comes to comedy, uh, if I say something that I think is really true in a way that is funny and people don't laugh, then somebody else might say, "Okay, give that up and just write a new joke." If I go, "No, but I think I think the message I had was important, was worth saying anyway." Um, but I can't just say it again if nobody laughs every time. So, like, do I need to write a new joke about the same topic? Or do I just need to give this up entirely because the role of the comedian is not to impart messages, it's just to make people laugh, right? So am I doing it wrong if I keep insisting that I don't talk about mental health or drinking problems or grief? Or so, like, is my insistence on delivering these messages making me a worse comedian? Um, Or should I just keep saying these things even if people aren't laughing as much as they are other people? You know, that's my biggest struggle. Am I being am I being uh am I being bad at this? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But a lot my favorite. I mean, like maybe you know Maria Bamford. She's one of my favorites. She's like a bipolar comedian, and she makes jokes about all of that. And I don't know. I think she's not like mainstream observational comedy, but the things she says are brilliant and really important. And I think that's a big part of the comedy I like is when it has a message. I think comedy is always enhanced by a message, but that's not the consensus these days in comedy. And I'm new to it as well. I've only been doing it like 2 years and I've only performed on stage once a month. That's really not a lot. So for me to be, I don't know, brainstorming a manifesto about it this early on feels a bit big for my boots to be doing as well, you know? So yeah, it's a very new one to me. I really don't understand it at all. I don't understand it. I don't understand people. I don't understand comedy. I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm learning a
Right.
lot, you know? Yeah.
No, I don't here thinking, right? Like you remind me of the last person Mickey got, brought on the show, right?
Yeah.
This whole introverted person, but yet their whole life, you can never tell that they're an introverted person. I mean, even just being on the show, right? Like, hold on, you're a what? You're this, you are not an introverted person, but yet you really are an introverted person, right? You're a comedian, you're on stage, you're writing books for all these people, you're film, right? You're doing all
Yeah.
this filming for people. right? Or with people, not for, for and with people. Like
Yeah.
you're around, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that is so crazy to hear and see, right?
Mm.
Whereas me, I'm an extroverted person, and when the moment that I want my downtime, it's like, is everything good? Is everything good? Because it's like completely opposite of who I am. Absolutely.
Right. So you need
Absolutely.
to be around people even when you're taking a break, or
Right. I'm telling
yeah.
you, no, 100%. You know, it's what I always tell people, man. Like me stuck between these right here is bad juju.
Right. Yeah.
It's bad juju.
If I have one strength, is my ability to spend like ridiculous amounts of time by myself. It disturbs me how much people need to spend time with one another. In fact, from my perspective, I'm like, Jesus, because they'll spend time. People will at lunch in work. I sit with a book all the time, and people have like done wellness checks to my manager. Basically, they're like, "What's up with this guy? Is he okay? Like, he doesn't talk to anyone during his lunch." And I'm like, the manager's just had to say, "No, this is just what he likes to do. He just likes to read by himself." But then I overhear other people while I'm reading, just having conversations with people they don't necessarily like, just to have any kind of company at all. I don't think there's enough of like uh, I don't know, like a standard of like, finding your own people. I don't know if people find their own people so much when they desire to be around people all the time. I very carefully curate who I spend time with, probably far too much of a degree. But when you're talking about like I think I do the filmmaking thing and the comedy because they're so against the type of person I am. I don't think that yeah, I don't think that the best life I can live is one that is just fully tailored to the type of person I am. Because I don't think that's much of a challenge, and I don't think that it's I think that whether you're extroverted, introverted, whatever, being around other people um is really difficult, and
Right.
it's challenging. Oh, we've got somebody else joining us.
Hi, Leo. Hi, Kevin. I'm sorry I'm behind you.
That's all right. Listen, we're sitting here having us a great time, man. This guy is freaking amazing, dude. Trevor, this is Leo. This is another co-host. But
Sure.
look, the guy he's a comedian for one, he's an author for two, or shall I say he's an author for one. He's been writing and publishing for a number of years. Been a comedian for 2 years now. Film making slash videography slash video editing for a couple of years too.
6 or 7 now, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, say 6 or 7 years. He's
Yeah.
originally from Scotland, lives in Norway. I mean, the guy is just completely culturally, absolutely all the way around. He's an introvert by nature, and his whole career, he's extroverted. His whole life is just filled with extrovertism.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Kevin's got me down.
Uh,
Good deal. Scotland and Norway. How
Yes.
awesome is that?
Nice. You're in North Carolina as well, Trevor?
No, I'm in Colorado.
Colorado. Okay. How do you guys know each other?
so we ended up kind of like you with some of your experiences, right? Do you mind if I tell them from my experience with you, Trev?
No, not at all. Not in the least. I have nothing to hide, nothing to mind.
All right, I'm sitting there in a meeting, right? And I'm an introvert. I have my moments where I'm an introvert slash I'm a extrovert. So I'm sitting there in this meeting, and you got this guy that's talking and talking and just yappity yappity yappity. I'm thinking to myself,
I'm a social butterfly.
this little SOB is just freaking Mr. Know-it-all, ain't it? Like I didn't say nothing the whole meeting. And then they throw us in this little
A
break
breakout room.
a breakout room. And I'm like, and I'm wrapping presents the whole time, right? I'm wrapping gifts. This is last year at this time, or a month. I think it was October of last year. So we're sitting
Yeah,
there.
October.
Yeah. And so we in this little breakout room, and I'm like, and this guy's just talking, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to meet this SOB. I don't want to meet this little jerk. I can't stand him, won't like him. And within 2 minutes of being one on one with him, I fell in love with him, and he's an amazing dude. I consider him a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. And I've told him my experience with him, uh, and we've laughed over it many times. And he's just a great dude, honestly. So when I went to Seattle, I did my cross country tour. I was coming back through Denver, and he stays an hour south of Denver, and I'm like, well, shit, I'm gonna stop in and see him. I think I was down in Pueblo, Colorado for about 2 or 3 hours with him. We were just hanging out, BS, and riding around. So
Really fun.
yeah. So that's how I ended up meeting him. My experience with him. But yeah. So we've talked about Trevor, mental health, guys in mental health, his experiences with some of his challenges throughout being an author, being a comedian, getting into filming, different cultural experiences with him from Scotland, being in Norway. I mean, we've covered a very broad level here. So I'm gonna let you ask the next question or two.
Okay, so Leo, how did you establish yourself in the mental health region, like the regional topic of mental health awareness? How did your involvement become begun in it?
Very good question. It was always of major interest to me in all of my writing because I find writing very cathartic when it comes to mental health, getting things out of your head. They're no longer swimming around in there. And if you're good at articulating them, you can articulate them for other people, and then that can be a very healing thing. Certainly, some of my favorite writers did that, and made me feel very less alone, particularly when they articulated like really dark thoughts I didn't know you were allowed to have. That was my favorite. It's my favorite kind
Imagine
of thing to read.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You and I just connected real deeply.
Nice, nice. So I wanted to participate in that lineage, I suppose. But it wasn't until the horrific Hope Film Festival in Virginia, Winchester and Richmond. They have a horror, like a mental health focused horror film festival, and they picked one of our films, called Burnt Portraits, which was about a mad painter who traps people in his basement. I can't remember what else it was about, but I spent so long on it 5 years ago. It was really important to me at the time. And then I realized, okay, so there's a connection between horror and mental health, which I guess I kind of always knew. Um, but I didn't think I wanted to be so message focused. But when it comes to mental health, that's just it's such a great message to focus on that I have no problem with it whatsoever. And then most recently, a writer friend of mine, Bo Chappell, gave me a film to make called Cherophobe, which we released for World Mental Health Day, which I think was in October, end of
Not too
October it might have been. Yeah.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's just become part of our mission because there's such a strong relationship between good mental health and participation in the arts or arts communities. And it's just something I'm very proud to be a part of now. And I love meeting, like you say, particularly like men who talk to each other about mental health. It's just so badly needed, as you both know more than I do. So yeah, I love it.
That's outstanding. I like hearing that aspect being brought out to the forefront of the topic because it is across the globe. It's traditionally examined from a negative mental health concept of this dangerous person did this and their structure of their behavior was just so
Mm.
off the deep end that they couldn't ever be any uh, acceptable and productive member of society. And in the corrections field, I had to deal with some people who have an extreme length of bad behavior is what ended them up in prison. And I had to be part of my duties was assigned to help them be able to adapt to the regular living in prison, which changes all the time. And that's dramatically just like it is out here in the real living world, regular living world, is that you're still judged by a different set of people, only it's so many more people from either culture or country or region, whatever the area is that you might live in. Um, and they tend to go dark very quickly. And even they might misunderstand what you're trying to bring across until you get this strange, weird idea to yourself. Well, hey, if I just go dark, then yeah, they ought to get it. And then they judge you a different aspect that, oh gosh, this guy's really dark. You better watch out for him again. So
yeah.
it's a very fine line in mental health area that you have to find that razor edge to be able to walk in as quote unquote normally. And that changes. I've found in my studies, in my experience, in my understanding, especially in this podcast, that across the globe there are just so many different aspects that people use to try to judge you personally. If you talk a certain way, you act a certain way, and maybe accept or not accept you. So I'm really pleased to hear someone else on the planet that is engaged in being a productive member of mental health awareness and the ideation of accepting people as they are, where they are. So, and that's not a comedic line. That's true.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do, do you have any comedy to share with us today? That'd be an interesting thing to make a comedic point out of.
Oh God. Well, the piece of comedy that I'm trying to turn into short film was something that happened to me at a party recently because I couldn't believe people still did this. Which is like I wasn't drinking alcohol, and a woman came up to me and was like, "Why aren't you drinking alcohol? Boo! We're all drinking alcohol." And I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know people still did this. Like you can't do that. I don't even know you."
Right.
So then the joke. This is how I tell jokes, which is like not that funny. Is that I just tell a long, sobering monologue for about 5 minutes of like my family's history with alcohol problems, and like how dark I used to be with like my own drinking, until like she just ends up really disturbed, and then I just say, "Oh, I didn't catch your name, by the way," at the end of it. So that's my idea of a joke. But this is how I try and slip the mental health thing in. There is a message there, which is just like if you don't know somebody very well, don't go up and ask them why they're not drinking. Like that's ridiculous. You can't do
Right.
that anymore. So I guess this is how I try to spread like mental health awareness about things. God, what else do I talk about? I had a very dark joke where I just said like I'm bald obviously, but my dad he had beautiful hair his whole life. I envy him so much. I wish I was dead. That was my very first joke.
Uh,
And nobody
that's
liked it.
awesome.
I think it's brilliant. Yeah. But see, there you go.
It
It's
is
the
brilliant.
intersection of
You
mental
don't
health and
look bald.
comedy.
I thought you had hair
No,
behind
I've
the
pushed this
top of your.
forward because like the forehead gets bigger if I do that. So
Oh, okay.
maybe it's
There it
behind it.
is.
Yeah.
Hey, and
This is not
believe
my
it or
first.
not, I do
Not my
have
first
hair.
podcast, gents. Yeah.
I do have hair, but it's receding it with this
Yeah.
old age thing that I got going
Oh,
on.
That's great. Yeah, you're
oh, buddy.
flaunting it.
I'm sorry. The dude, look, you lost me at. No, I push it forward because if I don't, then my forehead gets bigger.
Yeah. See, yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh my God, that never. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, you don't need to think about these things, right? Yeah.
Hey,
Right.
listen,
It's hair
not right
privilege.
now. Not right now, but you can see.
No, that's
You can
strong.
see.
That's strong. You're all
Right.
right. Yeah.
Listen, whenever I start going bald, I think I'm gonna be like Ruben and get the phoenix put right here on the side of my head.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool.
I think I would end up doing that. He's one of our co-hosts.
Oh yeah.
Today he's not. Yeah, he's not showing up today. He typically shows up on Wednesdays. He's been out due to getting what was it, hip or knee or something. Hell,
Hip surgery.
he hip surgery. He really needs a head replacement. Okay, that's what he. Love him to death, but he needs a whole head replacement. That's
Uh,
he's and he's becoming this bionic guy, right? He's got millions of dollars of metal in his body. So we pick on him and call him Mr. Bionic. And anyways, he's really a great dude. And so he at 67 years old, right? No tattoos ever.
No.
None.
Oh,
67 years old. Right.
okay.
He tells his wife, he was like, I'm gonna go and get a tattoo and I'm gonna get a phoenix put on the side of my head. And I'm like, Ruben, you must have had your midlife crisis in your 60s.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. So he's a great dude. I wish he was able to be here so you could meet him.
Maybe next time.
So
But that's
Leo,
great. Yes.
Leo, let's kind of maybe talk about a little bit about how you ended up in Norway
Yeah, for sure.
instead of
I
instead of in Wales or Scotland.
Scotland, yeah.
They're
I'm
not,
Scotland.
they're not the same, correct? Wales and Scotland are
No, they're different
not
countries. Yeah.
exactly the same.
Yeah. You've got England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are part of the UK.
Okay.
So I'm from Scotland, and I did my master's in London. My master's in chemical engineering, and then I got the attention of a company that was called Statoil at the time. It's now called Equinor. That's here in Norway, and I still work for them now. And so while I was finishing my master's, I had an interview in Trondheim in Norway. It's the first time I'd been to Norway.
Yeah.
And they gave me a job offer in Stavanger, where I live now.
And
I thought, yeah, that sounds
isn't
cool. Yeah.
isn't Trondheim the capital of Norway?
That would be Oslo. Oslo is the
Oh,
capital.
okay. I
Yeah.
apologize. I don't mean to be
No,
ignorant
no.
of that. I knew it was one
Well,
or the other.
I'm very ignorant of the culture here, so don't work for it. But yeah, I now I live in Stavanger. But they gave me the job offer here, and I thought, yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, I was not tied down by anything in particular. And it's really worked out here. The quality of life here is great. The work-life balance is fantastic. And as we've been
Wonderful.
talking about, if you want to make films or do comedy or write, we now have the technology that anyone can do this anywhere in the world. And I think they should be doing it anywhere in the world because it makes wherever you do it better. You shouldn't be necessarily flying off anywhere to do it when I can just start talking to you gentlemen in the US whenever we like. So yeah.
Well, it's wonderful to hear about that because it made me kind of just oddly thinking is how does the Scotsman get to Norway and live and thrive out there in that different culture? Because I know there's a culture difference.
Oh yeah.
There has to be.
Big
And on
difference.
that topic, part of the mission of this podcast team and one of the biggest interests and amazing concepts of this podcast is to become a global resource for all countries, all walks of life across the globe, whatever culture, religion you come from. There is some type of mental health issue that you may be experiencing and not know how to handle it. Well, we are that
Yep.
outlet that exists where you can come in your language or your culture background and be accepted and be able to openly talk about that with us. And we like to be that resource that opens up the flowering of what you need to talk about on an organic basis. And I think that's one of the most amazing benefits that I've had yet of being part of this podcast team and as a very humble, grateful, honorable privilege just to have that, because I'm not necessarily, I don't have a specific degree in anything. I just have a lot of life experience, mostly on the negative side, because I was trying to be Mr. People Pleaser and please everybody doing the same things that they did. You talked about the alcohol thing. I get that. And in some countries, it's not even allowed. But like there's a zero tolerance, and and that doesn't give an individual the actual humanistic ability to express themselves as far as they are actually being a human in even their own culture. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that we like addressing here that most other podcasts or most other discussions will not even partake a part of, you know? So yeah, we're well on our way. I don't exactly know how many followers we have, Kev. Um, but you would, because you're the guru of all the technology, but you don't have to express it or anything, but I'm just saying, hopefully we're growing even more than we were 6 months ago.
we have over 13,000 followers across all social media platforms.
Okay.
Wow.
And we've had over, last time I looked at it, so I'm a round up by about 1,500 to 2,000. Last time I looked, since January the 8th of this year, we've had approximately 170,000 views across 10 different platforms. That's
That's so
only with
Outstanding.
impressive.
the
Right.
what?
Right. No, I'm
Come,
I'm just agreeing with you. That's amazing all the way
yeah,
around, because I haven't heard any statistics in a while. So
yeah. I don't run them all the time, at all. And as you just said, that's very impressive. I I run it every so often, kind of give me to give myself or us an idea of like where we're at, and kind of help to maybe respark that goal of trying to spread awareness, right, of whether it be with authorship, whether it be with filmmaking, whether it be whatever, right, because everything is a challenge for
Mm.
anybody. So no, 100%. So 13 plus thousand followers, man, on, and that is does not include Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon, Audible, Deezer. That doesn't include none of that.
oh, wow.
No.
In your first year as well, those are crazy numbers. That's very cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. When we hit January the 8th, I'm waiting to see all the stats from the last year. So we got two more months before we hit all that.
Very
Yeah,
exciting.
absolutely.
Very cool.
So
Mm.
so listen, I'm gonna let Trevor wrap us up a little bit, or start heading that way.
So Leo, are you an original Scotsman? Were you born in Scotland?
I was born in London, where my parents lived there at the time, and then we moved back to
Okay.
Scotland. And then I grew up there, and I moved out when I was like 21, 22. I lived in Spain for a year with my partner after I finished my
Okay.
uh, bachelor's degree. And
Yeah.
then once I finished my master's, I moved here to Norway. And you're talking about different cultures. Like, the interesting thing about living in Spain is that I don't look Spanish. So instantly, just on sight, you can tell that I'm not part of the culture, right? But
Yeah.
Spanish people don't care. They'll just talk to you straight away. Norwegians, I look like a Norwegian walking around, like I pass for a Norwegian, but their culture is so different that I just can't have a conversation with them. I can't do it. They're just the way they communicate, the things they talk about, that they're so just the kind of, it's so difficult to explain. Or just the topics that they touch upon, the topics they don't touch upon. It's so complex here. So if you're talking about interesting different cultures, like I think Um, cultures themselves can be extroverted and introverted. Like Spanish people, very extroverted culture. I think that's why I'm married to a Paraguayan, because then I'm kept extroverted. But Norway is an extremely introverted culture, which I kind of like. Like their method of being polite is to leave you alone, whereas a Spanish person's method of being polite would be to come around to your house and let's have dinners together. So, but I do think that like the expat experience of living in Norway does, for a lot of people, lend itself to low mental health through isolation from the main culture and through difficulties making friends and things like that. So, uh, culture definitely plays a huge part, a huge role in people's mental health.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I wouldn't expect the population of Norway to be introverted, and that's it's not disturbing, it's just surprising because one of the people that I know in Lower Alabama in Michigan, in Lower Alabama, um his name is Tron, and
Hmm.
he's a master electrician, and he's a very open person. He's not necessarily introverted unless you actually know him personally. And so I got the impression through him and his family, his mother and father and sisters and their families, at how open that they were. I It's just just uh kind of surprising to me that Norway, the people and the culture of Norway would just be, is it just because it's so cold over there constantly that they
Well,
remain
the
introverted, or
the trick is that your friend lives in Alabama. Like the Norwegians who haven't left Norway are not leaving there mentally. Like they're not leaving the bubble of Norway in their head that you break when you
okay,
come. You would break when you come there from another country. Like if you're going to make friends with a Norwegian, every single time a Norwegian has like lived abroad for a year or half a year with some university program or some other reason or some gap year they took. If they did that, if they had some experience of living in another culture, then they can be your friend. If
yeah,
they've lived here their whole life, it's next to impossible. Um, their interests are like
huh,
so hermetically, exclusively about what's going on in the country that they're just their brains are just there and they're not going anywhere else. And it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Um, it's just that there's a conflict with other cultures, but there's nothing wrong with the way
yeah,
they live whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with their pride of their country.
right.
There's many things to be proud of here. But
But they're
if you come
just
from
more
another culture,
engaged. Yeah,
they're
they're just more
exclusively engaged.
engaged in their own country.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
okay.
exclusively engaged in what's going on in Norway, and not with other people
So
from other cultures.
I
And
suppose
I think that's yeah.
I suppose you might relate to that as being narrow-minded in a sense.
I think you could interpret it as that. But when I'm here as an expat in this country, it's a bit rude of me to show up and go, "Hey guys, this is what's wrong with everything you're doing," while I like snack on all your resources.
Right.
Um, I don't think I'm in a position to make that point. And like I say, I think it's a beautiful way of life, and I think they're all very happy with the way they're living. Um, and I think that my presence is sometimes a disturbance to that, and that's unfortunate for everyone involved. That's the diplomatic way to put it.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
seems to me that that would be falling short on their openness and acceptance of other cultures as the rest of the
Yes.
world
Yeah.
ought to be. But that's a kind of revelating fact, a revealing revelating fact in the sense that um, we need to be more open with each other. And I've watched here in the United States of America in the course of probably around the last 35 to 40 years that the culture is shrinking. The more the technology grows, the more independent everyone becomes. And so the engagement of our speaking, acting, uh, reacting, and interaction with each other, it seems because of technology has kind of diminished that. And so being part of this podcast team, that's why I like our mission so much, is to become a global resource to talk about things that nobody is willing to talk about anymore, personally or engaged. So I appreciate you sharing everything that you've been sharing with me so far. And Kev, are we around the time for the question?
Listen, it's whatever y'all want to do. I'm sitting here listening. I've had my fair share of
Okay,
questions.
okay.
I've really enjoyed having him on, talking about his background, his history, his experiences, his knowledge, his thought processes. Like I've enjoyed the whole nine, man. I mean,
Yeah.
has been an amazing experience, and we've been completely okay. Like where I feel like this is one of the most genuine conversations we've had, because we haven't really stuck to a whole area, right? Like we just been kind of bantering back and forth where it's like, it's interesting. Tell me about this. And we might talk about filming, right? And then we'll jump back to being an author. So this has been kind of like one of the most genuine, down to earth convos that we've had on this show so far. And I'd like
That's
to
so lovely
thank
to
you for
hear. I
I
just I got such great vibes off of you in the first few minutes. I thought this is such a lovely, genuine guy, and I loved the South when I went there, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. I loved your mission,
hey,
and so glad to be part
I
of
love
this. And I want to keep in touch afterwards for sure. I
oh
want to
100%.
put you in touch with my friends in Virginia who would love your mission. Yeah,
Absolutely. No, 100%. So listen, I guess I'll ask the first question, and then I'll throw it back to Trev. Uh it, Most important question besides Trevor's questions is, if there's anybody who wants to buy your books, any of your literature, maybe contact you to have you as a speaking engagement, comedian, anything of that sort, uh, how would they contact you? Where would they find your stuff? Yeah.
sure. Thank you for the chance to say that. So the book is Bar Hopping for Astronauts, Cosmic Horror, Late Stage Capitalism, and Other Light Reading. It is out with Pulp Literature. You can find it on their website, which I believe is publiterature.com. It might also be on Amazon. If you want to find out more about me, you can check out my website, leoxrobertson.wordpress.com. Um, or you can find me on Instagram at leoxrobertson. You can find me on Facebook, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky. I'm trying to do the best service to all of my creativity stuff. I've got a YouTube channel. Reach out somehow, and I'll send you whatever you would like to see.
Wonderful. Well, we have our ways of being able to contact you. With that being said, in the podcast mission, and with it pretty much every episode, we request of our guests to describe for us in the best sense that they can, what
Mhm.
if there was a call to action, or our CTA, if there was a call to action for you to give to individuals that want to break out from the traditionally level of existence that they're in and their mental health awareness, what is a call to action to them that you would give as a piece of advice for, so that they can become the real them that they were created to be?
Lovely chance to speak on that. I appreciate it. I was talking about how I'd made a filmmaking club here, and it was open for anyone to show up who had any particular interest in filmmaking. And so I met actors, filmmakers, photographers, people who were interested in sound or color or making the posters, or had no interest at all and just wanted a place to hang out with new people. And I can get very in my head when I've spent all the time alone ruminating on the idea that I'm not rich and famous and popular, and I don't have all the readers in the world, and nobody's calling me to tell me I'm a genius. you know? Oh my God, isn't my life so terrible? Um, but when I got out the house and went to my club and hung out with people and gave it my best shot to film something, I realized that like the best thing I could do for my mental health was just to get out the house and hang out with someone, anyone, just participate in the world a little bit. And it just comes with this relief and this sense of meaning and purpose and uh, connection. And you can find that anywhere in the world. And it's so obvious to me why we don't do it, because I find that a big challenge. It's a challenge to hang out with other people, but it's the biggest one. Get out and hang out with people.
Exactly. Be social. And that's how we established our relationship, isn't it, Kev? I'm a social butterfly, baby.
Well,
Anyways, I we really
uh,
appreciate you being our guest today, Leo, and your piece of advice is open for so many different people in any part of the world that they might be in, that they might need to break away and get really down to being the person that they were created to be. And we appreciate your insights and your wisdom and everything that you've been sharing with our podcast today. And we respect you so much for the privilege of your time with us.
You too,
absolutely,
gents.
sir.
Really appreciate it.
I would like to say thank you for being on here and agreeing to come on. And you're more than welcome to come on anytime, day or night, day of the week, night of the week, doesn't matter. More than welcome to come on anytime.